Hi, I'm Winston, and welcome to the Real Estate Template. Today we're going to be talking about entrepreneurs. We're going to go live on this video so we can get some interaction from other people. But our main goal is to talk about what a entrepreneurial mindset really is. What do you need to think about? How do you need to think? What do you need to make certain decisions? We're going to talk about all of that right there so that as you're looking at becoming an investor, maybe a real estate investor, or create your own business in another way, then you look at it and say, am I willing to do this? Am I not willing to do that? I'm not telling you that being an entrepreneur is an easy task. It isn't. It's a very hard task. There's countless hours you're going to work. It's as thankless of a job as you can get because everybody thinks that you're doing everything trying to make money off of their backs when you're just trying to support a family, same as if you was working a regular job. But everybody's mindset changes towards you as you become an entrepreneur. I got at least a dozen different people that I have helped start their own companies. So I owned a service company in Nashville, Tennessee for 28 years. I had 72 employees when I sold that company. And throughout the years, I had different employees that came to me wanting to start a company, basically in direct competition with me. And as we talked about it, they all agreed they wouldn't compete with me. And because they wouldn't compete with me, I was more than happy to help them. I mean, I want as an entrepreneur, I want as a person, I want to help everybody else become successful. And I don't really care whether they do what I do to become successful. I'm already successful. So I'm not competing against those guys. So as they went into business, it was a very particular mindset that they had to get into that business. And the funny thing about going into business for yourself is when you go into business for yourself, immediately, 1 week into it, people think you're rich. You've spent every dollar you got to do what you do, and you start talking to people and you say, I own this company. Then they automatically throw you into a different category and create you into somebody that you are not. They'll shun you in certain ways. You think that you're better than they are because they're working for somebody else and you're working for yourself. There's a lot of things that come with being an entrepreneur, and they come from both sides. They come from the side where your friends are and the side where your family is. Everybody, I hate to say that most people don't want to see you successful, but most of your friends don't want to see you do better than them. Most of your friends don't want that from you because then they got to look at themselves and say, could I do better than what I'm doing now? So it's a very slippery slope for you. And just understand that if you want to be in business for yourself and you want to create something better than where you are right now, everybody does not accept that. Everybody will tell you why you will fail. Everybody will tell you can't succeed because of this and you can't succeed because of that. You make the decision on where you're going to succeed. You make the decision on if you're going to fail. I was having a conversation with my daughter yesterday. I had her read the book, The Extreme Ownership, with Jacko. I don't remember Jacko's last name, though. He's a SEAL. But through him, he was talking about extreme ownership, about what you do in your life. You do something and you own it. As an owner in my business, I can't blame anybody in my business for my failures. I got a guy sweeping the floors and the floors are dirty and I come in and it looks like crap. I can't blame him for that. I blame myself for that, because maybe I didn't give him the instructions I needed to give him, or maybe that guy ain't swept the floor good the whole time he's been there and I haven't had the guts to fire him and he stays there. So that's my fault also. I get a technician doesn't do a good job and you don't write them up and you don't do what you need to do to make them people more successful and they keep failing. Their failures are on you. Maybe they don't fit the position. Maybe they need to be doing something else. Maybe that's not where their passion is. But if you as the owner don't have the ability to correct those situations when people around you fail, then you own it. Your company fails because you did not do it. If I don't hire an accounting firm to do my accounting and I want to do it all myself, and then 5 years down the road, I get audited and I get hit with a couple $100,000 in taxes that I didn't pay because I didn't do my taxes right, I can't blame the auditor for coming in and auditing my business. I didn't do my job right. That's why that business got audited, and that's why that audit cost me a couple $100,000 if it did. Now, I'll give you a disclaimer here. I've been audited numerous times, and I've never had to come out of pocket with money except for one time, and it was like $4,000 or $6,000. I had to come out of pocket for that. But it's good to do business good. And as we're entering and bringing people on, we'll just chit chat for a little bit and then we'll get on to some other stuff. But I brought a couple of signs off my wall. So here's one of the signs that I have hanging in my wall. It says, tomorrow, the mystical land where 99% of human productivity, motivation, and achievement is stored. So many people out there, if you want to do something, do it. Don't say, I'm going to do this next month. I'm going to do it next year. I'm going to do it when my finances are right. I'm going to do it when my kids are a little bit older. I'm going to do it. All of us have heard that. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. All of us have heard it, and it rarely happens. People say that, but they rarely go out and actually do it. If you want to do something, do it. Just own it. Own it and do it. Tomorrow is just what this thing says. It is where everybody's hopes, everybody's dreams, everybody's goals, it's where everybody lives. They live in what they're going to do tomorrow, and then tomorrow is always tomorrow, and it never happens. So I want to encourage you, if you want to start a business, start a business. Don't wait. You're waiting for the money to be right. The money's never going to be right. You get into it, you start it, and you fail forward on everything that you do. You don't sit there and look at life and say, I don't want to fail. If you don't want to fail, then you need to stay an employee working for somebody else, because part of being a business owner, part of doing what we do is failure. We all fail. Everybody fails. It is not an easy job. Everybody fails. But when you fail forward. Fail, look at where you failed, examine it, live in that moment of failure, understand every aspect of your failure, and then move forward and forget about it. But never let that happen again. You know, we see history in our country being rewritten right now. Well, the problem with that is when you rewrite history, people don't know what happened, and then they're doomed to repeat it. Same thing in your business. Don't just act like it never happened. Realize it happened. Own that right there. Don't let it happen again, but don't let it keep you down either. We can't be judged on what you failed on yesterday. You got to be looking into the future, looking at what you're going to do, and just continually moving forward to be better at what you do, not just worried to death about whether you're going to fail or not. You're going to fail. So what? Fix your problem and go to the next step. And that may happen to you for a year. I think if you're going to do real estate, we're going to give you some education in real estate. Other people out there give you good education in real estate. Watch them. Watch their podcast. Learn from their mistakes. I mean, we got one of my favorite podcasters is Jason Hartman. Another one is Ken McElroy. I like listening to these guys because they talk about their real lives. They talk about their failures, and they move forward. They do way more analysis than what I do, so I can learn from them. George Gammon's another one of those guys. I can learn from these guys that help me not make mistakes. Now, if I go out there like a bull in a china shop trying to grow my business and not paying attention to the market, not paying attention to what our government is doing, not paying attention to what's happening with our money right now, how much money is our country printing, where's inflation going, where's the interest rates going? If you just go and you say, I'm going to go do it, and you do it, but you don't educate yourself about what's happening around you, you will fail. And you will fail so drastically that you won't be able to fix it. And you don't want that to happen. So you don't want to live in that moment that you can't take the ownership of all of what's going on around you. We have so much opportunity to step into the real world and find out what's going on right now. Whatever time it is today, I can go on the internet and I can find out what's happening right now, what's happening with the market, what's happening in the economy. We know this stuff. And as you invest, you change your investing strategy so that you don't allow that to beat you down either. You just become aware of it. We've had a lot of questions that have come across. A lot of people ask if we need to do an LLC whenever you're investing. I did a podcast yesterday. Nick will get that up in the next couple of days. And we talked, I was doing a podcast with my attorney, and we talked a little bit about it. His attitude is we need to get the LLCs and we need to do them. My attitude on it, if I'm talking to an individual and you're just starting out your company, if you go get a LLC, you're going to spend a little bit of money on the LLC to get it formed. You're going to spend a little bit of money to maintain it. Things are got to be done a little bit different, extra checking accounts and things like that. And when you do that, if you don't have enough money to support that and grow your company and grow your business, don't do the LLC. Do it in your personal name. You can always move it into an LLC 2 years from now, 5 years from now. I was in business for myself in the real estate industry. I had my company that was a service company. I did a C Corp as soon as I did it. So it was done on day one. But my real estate, I put all my real estate in my personal name. And I did that all the way from 2006 to 2014. As I was buying real estate, everything went in my personal name. I would talk to my insurance agent. I would say, do I need to put in an LLC? And my insurance agent would tell me, no, you don't need an LLC because my insurance has insurance. So we have enough insurance to cover anything that's going to happen on our properties. Other than something that you purposely do something that gets somebody hurt, then you got a whole different type of claim. But through everyday action of what's happening, they're not going to be able to get to me personally. So I would talk to my accountant. Do I need to do an LLC? And my accountant would tell me the same thing. And even today, with $50 million in assets, both of those people still tell me I don't need an LLC. That is a question you can have with your insurance agent. That is a question you can have with your accountant to make your decisions. But if you don't have enough money to start off properly and do what you need to do, then in my opinion, I would not go out and spend the extra money on an LLC. I would go ahead and get started. Wait till you get a few properties. I mean, something goes wrong and somebody sues you, they're going to sue you. If you don't have anything, you still don't have anything. And that was kind of my attitude in the beginning. I didn't have anything for them to really take. And then whenever I got to where I was worrying about whether people would take anything from me, then I went and got some guidance. But get some guidance. You can talk to an insurance agent for free. You can talk to your accountant for free. Just talk to them and say, what do you need? What do I need to do? Do I need to do this? Don't go talk to somebody that sells you LLCs. They're going to tell you need an LLC every single time. But talk to somebody who's not there selling you anything. They're just here talking to you. Your insurance company is going to sell you insurance whether you put it in an LLC or whether you put it in your personal name, so they don't really care where it is. Your accountant, he ain't going to care either. You know, he may make a couple extra dollars a year to do an LLC tax return rather than just running it straight through your personal, which your LLC is probably going to run through your personal anyway. But I'm just saying, if you're starting off and you ain't got a lot of money and you're struggling, don't tie all your money up in something that is going to stop you from being able to move forward. So anybody's got any questions or something, please write your question in the comment section. Nick's watching the phones for me. He's going to be able to let us know any questions that are coming through, and we'll just answer them on the fly. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if your question is in the middle of what we're speaking about. As soon as I break, you put that question in, Nick will let me know, and we'll talk about it and hopefully answer anything you got. Nothing's off limits. You got a question you want to ask it. We encourage you to please share the video, get some more people on track with us talking, and we just appreciate y'all watching anyway. So today, what I'm going to do is just talk about what I'm about, what Winston Templet is about. I'm going to talk about what is the real estate template about. We're going to talk about why we started that right there and what we're trying to do with that. And the short part of it is I'm just here because I feel like I've been blessed in what I do. And you will learn as we go through some of the stuff that I have on the board that I never grew up in a blessed life. This life was created. And I just want to give back. And if I can help people do stuff, I listen to people talk on podcasts and they're so far over my head. And even people that comment on some of my videos and say, well, he didn't use geothermal, he didn't use geotechnical. They'll give you words that I'm not using, but I'm not trying to use a word that people have to go look up in a dictionary in order to be able to understand what I'm talking about. I'm trying to talk to you in a just regular terminology. And that's how I live my life. I don't live my life acting like I'm something I'm not. I live my life on a very small scale, and I just talk real life and real what it really is. So what I got right here is, what do I do? So number one, and probably one of my favorite things that I like to do, is the first two right here. I like to do land development. So I like to find a piece of land that it may be one tract of land, it may be two tracts of land that are side by side. I bought one piece of property one time, and then it took me 3 or 4 years to buy the properties next to it, and then I bought those, and then I made a development out of that. I like to do stuff like that. I like to buy one piece of land that I can buy for $50,000, $100,000, $250,000, and then take that piece of land and turn that piece of land into 20 units, 30 units, 10 units. And then I like to build it. So I like to create that right there. So the next part right there on the new construction, I do all facets of new construction. So I am a state licensed contractor for electrical. I'm a mechanical contractor, and I'm a general contractor. So I can do pretty much anything that I need to do. I do industrial work, we do commercial, we do residential. My preference in my portfolio, I like residential. I don't mind multifamily. I like multifamily too, but I like single family. I have a lot of single family houses. I enjoy the single family houses. I love building the single family houses. I can build them in 4 months and turn them and go with it. They make great returns on investments. Typically, I can do that at an infinite return whenever I do it. Now, what an infinite return means is I build the house and then I pull all my money out of the house, so I don't have any money invested in the house. So there is no money in it, so the return on it is just an infinite because it's not monitored against anything. So we do that a lot. And if you look at different videos, I tell you how to do that. If you don't understand how to do it, get in touch with us. Let us know. We'll buy and hold. I will buy houses that I need to rehab, so I'll buy stuff like that, rehab it, then I put it in my portfolio and we just rent it out. I am not a fix and flip guy. I don't want to go out and buy a house, fix it up, and sell it to somebody else. I'm not going to say I haven't ever done that, but I don't think I've ever done that more than twice. We don't try to do that right there. We don't want to do that. We want to buy it, fix it, and hold it. I am a passive income guy. I want my money. I don't work an outside job outside of my real estate business. My wife doesn't work outside of our real estate business. This is our life. We make all our money through rentals. So the only money I make is what I bring in rents every single month. So we are passive income people.
Winston, I got a question.
Yes, sir. What's the question?
If I build a home cash, when it is complete, build a home. When you build a home with cash and it is complete, when can you pull a HELOC out?
So when you build a home with cash, I'm gonna take that in a couple of different perspectives. When I build a home with cash, when can I pull a loan against it? When can I pull a HELOC against it? So if I build a home with cash and I'm gonna rent that home out, the minute I finish that home, I can go to my bank and I can pull 80%, whatever they'll allow me to pull out of the value of that home out in a loan on day one. As soon as I get my certificate of occupancy, I can apply for that. Now, if I get a construction loan to build that house, then when the house is done and I got a certificate of occupancy, they're going to turn that construction loan into a permanent loan. When they turn the construction loan into a permanent loan, what's going to happen with that is they're going to tell you you have to hold that loan for 1 year before you can pull more money out of it. If you have the opportunity to build with cash, always build with cash. Because when you build with the cash, the bank isn't controlling you at all. And from day one, once it's finished, you can pull out 80, 90% of the appraised value of that home, not what the construction loan is. So you can do that as a HELOC, or you can do that as a conventional loan or FHA loan, any of it. Once the house is done, you can pull it out immediately. And you can start the loan process even before the house is completely finished, but they won't be able to give you the loan until it is done. Now, one reason that the banks want to wait, so you do it and they close out the construction loan, they want you to wait a year, because they want to, if it's a rental house, the bank's looking at it and saying, okay, I want to make sure it's stabilized. I want to make sure it's going to rent. They got all these things that they're looking at with you personal in your portfolio. When you take that out of it, then they don't look at that. Why, I don't know, but that's That's what it is. And I've talked to my bankers about the same stuff, and they're all on the same page. That's the way they do it. Is that it?
Another question. When living in a multifamily property under an FHA loan, may it be under an LLC?
Does FHA do a loan for LLCs?
Yes.
Typically, so we'll do an FHA loan, and what they require us to do, I have a piece of, let's say I got a house, and it's in one of my LLCs. Then when I do an FHA loan, they want me to take that, they want me to move that house out of my LLC into my personal name. They do the loan, and then I take that house and I move it back into the LLC. And they understand that that's what you're doing. And the people I deal with do not have a problem with that. I can take that house, put it in my personal name, get the finance on it, move it into the LLC, and it doesn't invoke a due on sale clause. Talk to your banker about that before you do it. If they have a problem with that, move it to your personal name. Then you can talk to a land trust attorney, somebody that does trusts, and they can actually take, let's say you got a piece of property that's in your name and it has a loan on it, and the bank says if you move it out of your name to another name, it's going to invoke the due on sale clause. What can you do if you want to get it out of your name? You can actually create something that's called a land trust. So what happens is you got your house here, it's in your personal name, you got your land trust here. So you can pick up your house and legally place it inside of a land trust, and once it goes in the land trust, the bank no longer looks at it. It's still in your name. They don't see it moving out of your name, but it's in the land trust names. And you can actually pull it from the land trust and move it somewhere there, and the bank doesn't see that transaction either. But speak with a trust attorney. They can tell you how to do that. I am not an attorney by any means. Okay, so we do residential. We own one apartment complex that I personally own, and I actually have one apartment complex that we are hopefully going to start construction on this year that is 60 units. So we'll do that build also and hold it. Everything that my wife and I have, we own everything that we have. The attorney that I did an interview with yesterday that Nick's going to post the podcast with, that podcast, him and I are actually fixing to do a 10-unit townhome development together. That'll be my first deal to ever partner on. I've never partnered on anything before, and we've been friends a long time, so I'm comfortable with that. We'll see how it works out. So we do warehousing. The building I'm in right now is a warehouse. We got a couple of warehousing buildings. We got a couple of commercial buildings that we own. And right now, I think we have 4 total Airbnbs. So that's what we do. So we are across the board on all of it. It doesn't matter. I don't have a preference. I only want to invest in this. I only want to invest in that. What I want to invest in is what is going to yield me the most amount of money. Well, let me correct that a little bit. I want to yield the most amount of money, but I also want a piece of property that is not problematic. So I'm not going to go out into one of the worst areas in Nashville and start doing rental properties, because those properties require a lot of attention. So I don't personally, at this phase in my life, want to have to spend that much time managing a property. You can make a great return on those properties, but they do require more management. Maybe if you're starting out, that's a better place to enter the field at if you don't have a lot of money, because you can buy the houses cheaper. You can make a 15% return on investment with a minimal down payment. And you can start growing your wealth there and then exit out of that strategy once you get some houses underneath you. So I'm not saying don't do it. It's definitely a place you can make money. And it was a place whenever I started real estate, I didn't mind the extra trouble that it required. It didn't really matter. I was I was in my early 30s, so I didn't care. I'd spend the time on it. Now I go home and I don't want to be bothered when I go home. I want to go home and enjoy my wife, enjoy our life, and just live. So what's right for me isn't right for everybody, but I'm going to tell you, if you want to be successful, I don't care what you do, but do it with every single thing that you have. Don't do it thinking, well, I'm going to do it so I can have off every weekend. No, you don't get off every weekend. You don't. It just doesn't work that way. You don't get more time with your family when you start this stuff. You don't get more time with anybody. You may go a year and not take a vacation. You may go a year and not work, not have but a couple of days off with your weekends throughout the whole year. But what are you willing to sacrifice for success? Are you willing to sacrifice a year of your life, 3 years of your life, 5 years of your life? I can tell you the first 9 years of being in business, I didn't take a day off of work. None. I can tell you probably for the first 15 years, basically I got to where I started taking 1 day off a week or something like that. And I still answered calls and stuff like that through that. Different type of business. Real estate investing doesn't require as much. I can tell you right now as a real estate investor, with what we do, nobody calls me. Nobody. Not one single tenant that rents from us knows my name. They don't know me. They don't interact with me. We have an operating system that we work off of that everything goes through right there. Everything is done digitally. So we don't have to have anybody calling us late at night. If they got an emergency call, they can do it. It'll ring my maintenance guy. My maintenance guy just goes and takes care of it. I don't even have to, I'm not even aware of it most of the time, because I don't have to be aware of it. I've structured a business that I don't have to be on site all the time. We could leave here, go wherever we wanted to go in the world and live there for the next 5 years and never miss a beat with our company. It would just run. That's what you want to build. That's what you want to do for your freedom. And I would encourage you. I mean, it starts with one house. It starts with one office building. It starts with one thing. It doesn't start by going out. You ain't got no money. You want to go buy an apartment complex like Grant Cardone says. That is not the way you do it. That's not going to work. What they want you to do is give them your money, let them buy an apartment complex, and them give you 10% return on your investment. 2 years down the road, pay you off completely, and they own the whole apartment complex, and you don't own nothing. Don't do deals like that with anybody. If you're going to do a syndication, what a syndication is, where they pool in a bunch of money from a bunch of different people, and then they build something or they buy it, they may have a 24-month or a 5-year plan of exiting it. Or maybe they're going to refinance it after a couple years. A good investor with integrity is going to give you the option to come in, put your money in there. 2 years from now, they're going to pull that money out. 5 years from now, they're going to pull that money out. They're going to give you all your money back, plus a little bit, hopefully. And you're still going to own the same percentage of the deal that you owned in the beginning. That is the best way to do it. Then it's passive income for your life. Now, other deals are made where they're going to give you 12% interest return on your investment. They come in promising you something like that. Yeah, they may buy you out of the deal in the end. I would rather give somebody 12% return on their investment and then 2 years from now do a cash out refi, pay those people off. I used their money for 2 years for 12%. And now I own the whole entire apartment complex. If you have questions about that, put them in the comments. Nick will read them to us. But that's a syndication. That's what a syndication is. I do not do any syndications at the moment. I am very familiar with it. I've had numerous classes and I've been in numerous training sessions on them. But at the moment, we haven't run out of money to the point that I need to do a syndication. So we do everything ourselves.
I've got a question here. Have you ever developed any LIHTC tax credit properties?
Okay, so I'm not sure what a LITC tax credit property is. Now I own a HUD developed property, and it may be the same thing. So I own a property that they got some HUD money that gave them the money to build it, or at least gave them most of the money to build it. So then HUD requires that property to be used as a HUD property, which is income based. It's not a Section 8 property, it's an income based property, and it stays with HUD for 15 years. So I will keep that property with HUD for 15 years. So I bought 2 neighborhoods last year. Both neighborhoods was built under that program. One of them was built in 2006, so it is out of it. So when I bought it, I can do whatever I want to do with that property. I have no restrictions. The other property I bought was built, it was 41 houses, and it was built with HUD money back in 2013. So they still have 3 years left on their contract. And with the 3 years on the contract, I have to maintain that property as an income-based property. Or I can buy out the contract from HUD, but it'll cost me like $1.2 million. So if I don't buy the contract out, they're forgiving $323,000 a year off of the deal. So I don't owe $323,000 this year that I owed last year. So I will continue to hold it throughout the entire contract because I don't want to pay that money back. So they do give you credits like that right there. And there's some cool deals out there. I've had people pitch them to me, but I have never built them. I just own the one HUD project, and that's really about all I know about it. I don't know a lot more about it. My wife handles all the paperwork and things like that, but that's where we are with that. So this gives you a little bit of a, any other questions we got?
No, right.
Okay. So this gives you a little bit about who we are, what we do, and what qualifies me. And my wife has attended a lot of videos with us also now. What qualifies her with the ability to be able to talk to you about this. I am so cautious about people that have been in the real estate market for 3 years, 5 years, giving you advice. I've been through down markets. I've seen the turn in the economy. I've seen things like that happen, and I've lived through that kind of stuff. And so many people now have only seen the market go up. So many real estate investors that are in there now have never been in a downturn. They've only seen profits, profits, profits. Kind of like the stock market. Throw a dart at a board. Wherever it sticks, you're going to make money. That's the environment we have been in. That is not the environment we're in now. So we want to be very cautious on that right there, that people aren't going out there and thinking, I'll just buy anything because any house I buy is going to make money. That was the case 2 years ago, 3 years ago. That really ain't the case now. You can lose your behind, and you can lose your behind really quick. So we had 2 houses we built, and I did not finish the houses in time. I got behind on the house. I was about 2 months behind on finishing the houses. And when I finished the houses, the market, the interest rates had already started going up, and the market was already leveling off. So at the particular time, 2 months before that, what was happening was people were giving $100,000 more for a house. I mean, the house would be worth $500,000, but they would give $600,000 for it because they wanted the house. So that was a big thing that was going on. Where people say the housing market has dropped across the country, in most areas, the housing market has not dropped. What has stopped happening is people are no longer giving over asking price. So these 2 houses we built, we traded the city out of some land, and we built them in a nicer neighborhood than we want to rent in. So I don't want to rent a house worth $400,000, $500,000. So we started on the houses, and the houses we were building were $450,000 houses. And then at the end, before we finished them, they were getting $650,000 for the same houses. They had went up that much that people were paying that much over asking price. When we finished it, the 2 months before we finished, the market had already leveled off, and then it just started dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping. And now we sold the house. We sold one of the houses for $495,000. But when we built the houses, our target goal to sell the houses was only $450,000. That's where we were. That's what we was trying to get out of them. So we didn't lose any money. You know, I'm not losing any money by selling it for $500,000 rather than $650,000. I mean, it would have been nice to get another $150,000, but you know, it wasn't worth $650,000. That's just what the market was bringing at the time. What it's worth is the $450,000, or they appraised it at $500,000. So it's worth the $500,000 that it's worth, and that's it. Tennessee, in the area I live in, just outside of Nashville, they're still expecting it, projecting it to go up another 8 to 10% in property values over the next year in 2023. The government's printing money. As the government prints money, the value of your dollar goes down. As the value of your dollar goes down because there's more dollars in circulation, all appreciated assets, whether you own gold, whether you own silver, whether you own real estate, whether you own a truck, whether you own a car, a motorcycle, all of that stuff, even though a car, a truck, and a motorcycle are depreciating assets, they went up when the government was printing so much money through COVID and all. They still went up in value because the dollar went down so fast and so hard, and the dollar's still dropping. So another thing you need to look at, right now, we got about over 60% of the debt that the United States has right now is going to be called within the next 3 years. All of it's coming due. So all of that debt was financed at like 1.5% interest. 26 or 23%. I'm gonna reverse those numbers. So it was either 26 or 23% of that money is coming due in the next 12 months. When that money comes due in the next 12 months, what's going to happen is they're not going to refinance that money at 1.5%. They're going to refinance it at market rate, which is probably going to be more like maybe they might get 4% or 5%. So the money they got to print right now, because we print the money to pay the debt because we're 140% of GDP that we owe. So that means out of what the government brings in, they owe 40% more money than what they bring in that they got to pay out every year. So how do they get that 40%? The only way they get that 40% is they print money. If they don't print money, the government defaults on its debt. When the government defaults on its debt, we lose our country. And that's just the cold hard fact. That's what it is. So everybody out there thinking that the free money is good money, the free money is not good money. It's not good money for you if you're a young person, because those chickens are going to come home to roost, and that money is going to be due. And the taxpayers are going to be the ones that's going to pay that money. It isn't free. It is destroying our country. It's destroying you, and you may not realize it at the moment, but you will see it over the next 10 years. You'll see it hugely. So as the government has to print that 40% more, that dollar is going to continue to devaluate, and assets are going to continue to go up. You got the BRICS nation wanting to pull out of the American dollar, wanting to use their own currency or create a different currency. You got all this stuff happening around our world. Once they pull the petrodollar off, where every other country isn't working their oil and everything off of the American dollar, and they bring it to a different standard, the American dollar will crash, and it will crash hard. Read some stories about Germany, Weimar Germany. Read some stories about some stuff that's happened in other countries when they lost their currency. Look at Venezuela. I mean, I would like to think we're not going that far, but we're in some bad shape. And as I listen to different economists across our country, they all saying the same thing. We're in trouble. But our country wants you to think we're not in trouble, our government does. And pretty much anything our government says, you can think just the opposite of it. So the next slide we're going to talk about, I want to just talk to people about what you think about this. I'm going to give my opinion later, but I'm not going to give my opinion now. So as somebody watching this video, what does it take to be successful? And that's a valid question, because as somebody is going to go in and they're going to talk about what they want to do. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be a real estate investor. That means a lot of different stuff. So for me, when I started my first company, I just had a goal of making $100 a day. I didn't need to make a lot of money. I just needed $100 a day, and that was making me do better than I was doing. So I didn't have these big goals. My goals are different now. We'll talk about them later. But to you, what does the success mean? What does success look like for you? It means something different for me. It means something different to Nick. What does it mean to you? And I just want you to think about it, and I want you to hold that thought till we get towards the end.
And hey guys, if you want to contact Winston directly, there's a button in our Instagram bio called Book Now, where you can then schedule a call with him. Go ahead and do that if you want, but not until after we're done. Don't leave.
Share this video if you can. Get people on board, share our information, follow us on all of the sites, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and let us know what you want. I really need people to tell me what they're looking for. What do you want to see? What kind of content? What are your questions? And let us help you. I mean, that's what we're going to do it for. I'm just going to give you simple layman terms on everything that I do. I'm not going to try and go over anybody's head. So what does it take to build greatness? So you got to determine your level of what successful means. What does great mean? There's a lot of people that look at they're great in their religion. A lot of people look at their profession, and they're really good at that right there. What does greatness look like to you? For me, I look at my greatness. What does my greatness look like? Man, I want to leave generational wealth to my kids. I worry about, we talked about me worrying about where our country is right now. I worry about that. And knowing that they won't have the same opportunities I had, and they don't. And if you're a young man or a woman, you don't either. You're going to have to work harder for what we didn't have to work as hard for. And that is where we are. But for me, I want to know that if I die tomorrow, my kids are good. I want to know that my wife is good. I want to know that my wife don't ever have to worry about anything in her whole life. I want to know that my ex-wife don't ever have to worry about anything in her life either. I want to make sure everybody I'm associated with is taken care of. And I want to make sure that I've done right by everybody. That is my level of greatness. To live in this world and leave it a better place than what I came into. To leave my family in better shape. I don't want to leave my family with any debt. I don't want to leave my family with wondering how they're going to pay for a funeral. That is my level of greatness. I don't live in a fancy house. I don't drive fancy cars. That stuff does not interest me at all. Not at all. That is not greatness to me. Now, you may have a desire to have a Ferrari. You may have a desire to have a Lamborghini. There's nothing wrong with that. I was talking to a guy. I used to think that people that wanted stuff like that were shallow. But as you talk to people that's really what they want, that is what drives their inspiration. I was talking to a guy a while back, and he bought a Lamborghini. And I said, why would you buy a Lamborghini? And he said, there's just nothing that gives me the feeling of sitting in that car, turning that ignition, listening to it run. He said, and as I drive up to my work, he said, I go in with a different attitude. So where it doesn't do that for me, but for that gentleman, what it does is it gives him the encouragement, it gives him the desire, it gives him the strength and the motivation to be better than what he is. And if that's what gives you motivation, then I'm going to say go after every bit of it that gives you the motivation to do better in life than what you're doing now. And it doesn't matter. If it's material, it's material. Some people are going to be stupid like I was before and say, okay, that makes you shallow. No, it doesn't. That's what we know because we're uneducated. That's what we know because we don't experience it. And the older I get, the more I realize that everybody don't live in my world and everybody don't do what I do. Everybody thinks differently. I grew up extremely poor, so I'm still, you talk about your great-grandparents that might have grown up in the Depression. Those people, no matter how much money they got as they got older, never spent that money. That's more where I am because I didn't grow up with it, so I know I don't want to spend it because I'm afraid that if I go out and I spend, my wife has asked me for years to buy a jet because she don't like traveling commercial. And I'm like, you out your mind, I'm not buying no jet. Now, could we buy a jet? Absolutely, I'd go buy a jet if I want to buy a jet. But I don't see the purpose in it, but I got friends that do. I got friends that have jets and they say, you know what? It cost me $20,000 to fly from Scottsdale, Arizona to Florida. And I make enough money that for me to spend $20,000 on that flight doesn't affect me at all. And I fly at my schedule, not somebody else's. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it. So we're not going to talk crap about what anybody wants. You go after your dream. That's your dream. Don't let nobody steal your dream and create your dream into something that they want it to be rather than something you want it to be. We're going to talk about what makes you successful and how you can get there. Once you get there, that's your life. You run with it. So what to you is a level of greatness that you would like to achieve in your life? Then, what does it take to build a legacy that will carry your family for centuries? Is that even what you want? I know some people that when they die, everything that they got goes to the church. They're going to give it to the church and let the church do what they think is best with it. That may be you. In my opinion, I think the church is as bad as the government as far as what they do with money. But maybe I'm wrong. I'm not judging anybody or anything, but I think that what you want your legacy to be is your legacy, not somebody else's. So what do you want? I want, and I will explain to you this in a minute. My will is set up so that the money that I have will continue to grow for the next 360 years, and my kids will have access to some money, but they will never have access to all the money. And I will explain how that works. I'll explain how we do it. And anybody got questions on that stuff, I can talk to you about that. That's something that we do. Nick's got a question.
3 things. Thanks for all the gifts. Also, when you're done with this live, go over to our YouTube channel, subscribe there, because that's where this video is going to then be posted, as well as all of the other videos that we have already. Maybe they can't hear me if I'm not on here. But
go use that microphone right there.
That doesn't. That goes to this one.
Oh, sorry.
Then also.
You want to hug me?
Maybe.
Okay.
Then type in how many rental properties you currently own, whether it's 10, 100 plus, 0. Let us know.
Talk about what you want it to be too.
Yeah.
You know, hey, give us some goals. We can shout those goals out and share that with people. Because the coolest thing in the world, in the business world, you go out and one business guy does not want to tell another business guy what he does. I don't understand that. I've never been that way in my life. I would share everything what I do to anybody, with anybody. I didn't care. But most people won't. But what I find in the real estate industry, and I'll go to conventions with 1,000 people, everybody's telling everybody else what they do. Everybody's telling everybody else how they do it. Everybody's helping everybody. It is a great market. It's a great world in the real estate investing world, because what I have found in that world is the people are giving. They are giving. Now, they're not going to give you their money, but they are giving in their knowledge. They are giving in ways to help you be successful, because I don't care where you are. I don't care where you are. I have been there, no matter what. I doubt there's a person on this video that was ever poorer than I was. But it doesn't matter. Everybody in the real estate industry wants everybody else to do better. I went to Nashville and talked to people that own high-rise buildings to get advice from them. And they would invite me into their office and they would sit down and talk to me for 2 hours. They don't care. They got a building worth $200 million that they just built. Am I going to go interfere with what they're doing? My little petty operation? No, I'm not. So it's a good place. It's a good place to be. So what motivates you? Is it money? Does money motivate you? And that's a cool question, because I think even a lot of people that think that money motivates them, money don't motivate them. I know in the business industry of being an entrepreneur for, 33, 34 years now, and always working for myself and always hiring people and firing people and dealing with all that, I rarely, and I'm going to say rarely, I could probably count the people on one hand, and I would have to sit and think about it, of people that I encountered that really were motivated by money. People want to make good money so that they can feed their family, so they can take care of their family, so they can invest. But I don't think the money is what motivates them. I think having a different type of lifestyle motivates them. Being able to go on an exotic vacation motivates them. Being able to drive an exotic car motivates them. Being able to pay all their bills motivates them. Being able to sit at home with your family and just enjoy the time and not worry about everything motivates people. But it might be money. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just asking. Is money what motivates you? I don't know. It's just this is a self-evaluation thing. What motivates you? Is it education? Some people are education junkies. My wife is an education junkie. She would go get a degree and then go get another degree and then go get another degree. And I don't understand that. I barely graduated high school. We'll talk about that right there. I should have never graduated high school, but I did. And I never saw the value in education. I got 2 kids in college. I don't see the value of my 2 kids being in college. Now, that does not mean I'm not education motivated. I go to seminars almost every single month. We'll take a weekend and we'll go to a 3-day seminar to learn something about real estate. I am passionate enough about real estate and my education and my real estate and what I do. We are consistently seeking more education, consistently looking for ways to get out into the world and learn more about what we do to make us better at what we do so that we can be the absolute best at what we do. And why do I want to be the best? Look at that. Because money never sleeps. If you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. That's a Warren Buffett saying there. But we live our life that way. Our life is through passive income, like we spoke about earlier. So we make the same money, every single hour of the day, every day of the year. It never changes. That passive income never changes. It only goes up. Year after year after year, it goes up. We buy more properties, it goes up. And that is definitely something that happens because I moved the needle in my education. So education is good. I don't know that it motivates me to do everything that I do. It definitely motivates me to do what I do better. Do we think that luck plays a part in our growth? Do we think that people are successful because they're lucky? I'm not going to say that doesn't happen. I'm not going to say that people are not successful because they're lucky. I'm going to say that I think it is extremely rare that somebody is successful because they're lucky. You go win a lottery, that's going to be luck. I think that there's probably some Hollywood stars that were just in the right place at the right time, that somebody heard them and picked up. That was a lucky thing for them. But you know what? Bruce Willis was lucky because he was discovered as a bartender, flipping glasses, flipping drinks. That's how he got started. That was luck that he got recognized. But I guarantee you, he worked his tail off to make everything work. The luck started there, but that luck went away the minute he got, hey, come do this role and let's see what you do. He had to work hard to do that right there. And I think that's a lot of things that people do. A sports player, they're not lucky. I mean, they might be lucky to be noticed or something like that right there, but their talent is what did it. Their talent brought them to where they needed to be. Are people motivated by greed? I don't know. You can have your answer on that. I think that most of the people I know, I don't know anybody that I would say is motivated by greed. I think that people would look at somebody and think that person is greedy for what they do. I think I've had people tell me because, we don't have to work. We work because we love what we do. But I have people all the time tell me, you just want more money. You're just greedy. Well, hell, if I quit doing what I'm doing, the people that I produce houses for don't get those houses. They don't have a place to live. So is that greed that I want to build more houses for people? And I love it. I mean, I'm passionate about it, and I love the real estate game. But I'm definitely not a guy motivated by money. I'm not a guy motivated by anything other than probably security. What I want more in my life than anything else is security. And you say, well, stupid, you got that already. I do. But I don't believe it 100%. I still live in that world where I just don't know yet. I'm still going to fight with it. So that's just some things of what motivates people, what might motivate people, what makes them do more than what they're doing right now. Why they're trying to do. Why does Elon Musk want to do more than he's doing when he's already one of the richest guy in the world, one of the richest guys in the world? When he's already there, why does he want to do more? Well, he'll tell you in his words. He said, my life ain't no great life. He said whenever he had some death threats, he said, they think my life is great. My life ain't great. Most people wouldn't even want to live my life. And that's probably a lot of truth with the man, because the man never goes home. He never sleeps. He works all the time. But his whole goal in life is he wants to make this world a better place. And I really don't think it's the fame. I think he really and truly wants to make this world a better place. I don't agree with a lot of stuff they do. I'm not a green car person. I'm not an electric vehicle guy. I'm not. But that's what he does. And he's been very successful at it. But I don't think...
Do you think it's possible to make money buying and holding 4 units or less with rates at 7% or higher?
Okay, so do I think whether it's a good idea or possible to buy and hold property right now at 7% interest? Go to my YouTube video, one of the first ones. Nick did it. He made me green. I look like the Incredible Hulk. I don't know. This was the first time he was learning. We're not going to hate on him too much, maybe a little bit though. But look at that video, and then I got 2 or 3 videos that passed that right there. And I can do a whiteboard video on this right here also to break it down. And actually, we did a whiteboard video last time on it, but it was a guy that was doing 23 houses, I think, 18 houses. So the 1% rule is in effect, but the 1% rule is not in effect for you to be able to say that you can make money. It used to be people would buy a $200,000 house and they would say, if I can rent that for 1% of the purchase price, then I'm going to make plenty of money off of it to manage the property. And that was the case at 3%, 4%. At 7% interest, I've run numbers on, at least 30 different houses, trying to just see some consistency in running numbers. And consistently, when I'm running it on 7% interest, I'm breaking even at 1%. So I'm going to tell you, you have to run your numbers. This is not a blanket, and I don't know what part of the country you live in. It's not a blanket thing. But your starting point, no matter what part of the country you live in, needs to be, if you're not bringing in 1% of your rents, 1% of the total purchase price of the rent, then you're probably going to come out of pocket to pay the note, to pay the expenses, to do the repairs, to do the maintenance. Watch some of my videos that I've done talking about that, because we hit that pretty good. We bought about $20 million in property last year, and I can tell you some of the stuff we bought needs a tremendous amount of money put into it. So we're putting a lot of money into these areas that is impeding our cash flow and putting more stress on us than I really like to do. I like to live my life with no stress. So that's putting some stress on us, because not that we only leveraged about, I think we're about 23% of our portfolio now that we're leveraged. But that being said, I can pull equity out of something else, but I would rather fight through it until I needed to do something else. And I think the way we're working it will be fine. But I don't particularly like being in that environment. And I would not recommend anybody to put yourself in that environment, because it puts stress on your family. If you got a wife, if you got kids, if you got a husband and you got kids, it puts that stress across everybody. And right now, I think if things go in the crap hole, like it might, that family's all you got to lean on. So don't put any undue stress on it. And that's my suggestion.
Should a beginner wait for home prices to come down before investing?
So should a beginner wait for home prices to come down before investing? I don't think home prices are coming down. I don't. Now it depends on your area. So if you're in, and I'm not going into politics or anything, but I can tell you, in a blue state, those houses are dropping in value. And if you, like Tennessee, everybody's moving to Tennessee. Everybody's moving to Florida. Everybody's moving to Texas, Arizona. They're moving to these states that give them better tax breaks and stuff. So there's such a housing demand right here. We're short somewhere between 2 to 5 million homes in our country right now. So right now, because from 06, 07 to 2011, really no houses were built. So there were hundreds of thousands of houses a year that needed to come into the market just to keep up. Well, those houses didn't get built. Then the houses started getting built. Now the housing market has dropped off again, where people aren't building again. So those houses aren't getting built. So across our country as a whole, depending on what kind of source you're looking at, I was looking at a source that said we're $2 million or 2 million homes short in our country. I was talking to my attorney yesterday, and he was telling me the report he was reading was saying it was closer to 5 million homes. So it's somewhere between 2 and 5 million homes in our country that we need more than what we have right now. So the demand for housing is so high, I don't think that you're going to get any great deals. The question is, so interest rates just went up again, a little small amount. I don't know that they're going to come down over the next 24 months. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. Maybe they hold them where they are for a while. I don't think the Fed is accomplishing anything by raising the rents or raising the interest rates. They raise the interest rates and they say, oh, inflation is better. I mean, look how the inflation is. Inflation is the same. You buy groceries, same as I buy groceries. You buy a car, same as I buy a car. You haven't seen none of them prices go down. They changed the way they do the rules. They just changed the rules to the game and lie about everything and keep on going. But I don't know if there's not a better time than now to buy in any time in the near future. I don't know that there isn't, though. I don't think the housing market is going to crash. I do think the financial market's going to take a huge hit. I think the stock market's going to take a huge hit. That's my personal opinion. You listen to some other people, they'll tell you, nope, the stock market's at the bottom, is nothing but up from here. I don't agree with that, not even for a split second. And when I bring a financial advisor and it's just them and me talking, they don't think that either. But if you quit giving your money to a financial advisor, guess what? They don't make any money. So they're not going to tell you anything because it benefits them to tell you that the market's going up so that you put your money in. And when it doesn't, they just say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it. Watch the movie The Wolf of Wall Street. And I'm sorry, I categorize most market people in that category. That's what I've experienced in my life. They don't have my best interests at heart. Nobody loves your money like you love your money. That's a term you need to put into your head and keep it. Nobody loves your money like you love your money. That's the question?
Here's a good question. If the housing prices do go down, does your rent go down too?
All right, so the question is, if the housing prices were to drop, does your rent drop? No. If you look in the history of our nation, I'm not going to say we don't take a small hit on rent every now and then. I can tell you, I've been doing real estate since 2006. I have never, ever lowered my rent prices, ever. Not one time ever have I lowered my rent prices because of the economy. I lowered my rent prices one time, and it's on a property that I just listed it too high. And it's multiple units, and I was struggling renting the one bedroom, so I lowered the price on the one bedroom so that I could fill them up. That had nothing to do with the market. The market was great at the time. It was just I went in too high. So I wouldn't. That is not something that I know of anybody that's worried about their rents dropping. You know, I don't know if you know who Kim McElroy is. He does a podcast called I just lost his podcast name. But Kim McElroy, he's got a couple of billion in assets that he owns. You know, he'll talk on his podcast all the time about rents. He's not worried about his rents going down at all. Jason Hartman, Creating Wealth, if you watch Jason's podcast, great podcast, they're not worried about that. They own tons of property. They are not worried in any way of their rents coming down. Now, be aware of your environment. There is, you know, we look at our country right now from a macro standpoint. What is it doing from a macro standpoint? You know, that means as a whole, how's the whole world doing? How does China affect the United States and Russia affect the United States? How does it affect Ukraine? And they're looking at everything, how everything works together. I don't do my real estate from a macroeconomics standpoint. I do my real estate from a microeconomic standpoint. So what microeconomics means is I live in a suburb of Nashville, Tennessee. So as I look at where I live, I don't compare my area to an area 10 miles from me. I compare my area to my area. And I look at, you got a street that runs down the road, and one side of that street goes to one school, the other side goes to a different school. And on a microeconomic standpoint, whichever one of them schools is a better school, whatever one is more desirable, then the kids on that side of that street that live on that side of the street, those houses are worth more money. The parents will pay more money for that house because that house is going to work better. If you're renting it, that house will rent faster because it's in a better school district. If you go across the street and it goes more to a school that's a crappy school, got a lot of drugs, got a lot of garbage going on with it, then I don't want my kids going to that school, so I would move to the other side of the street too. So you want to look at it all from that right there. You got to compare apples to apples when you're looking at that right there and know that what side the tracks is on. What is it going to do? And it's easy. I mean, we have so much ability. In 2006, we didn't have any ability to get this information quickly. Right now, everything is at your fingertips. You can diagnose these deals down. You can get all of the information that you want from different websites to tell you, is it a drug area? How many arrests happen in a particular area? You can just go to a city data sheet. How many arrests have been in that area? What's going on? What's the police force like? What's the fire department? You can get all that information, and that will give you what kind of area you're investing in. And you want to invest in a good area that's going to be able to always rent. I don't want to rent in an area. I don't want to buy in an area that, as long as everything is great, then it's a great rental. But the first time things go bad, it's no longer a great rental. We're watching the Airbnb market crash right now in a lot of areas because people aren't doing as much traveling. They don't have the money to travel like they did. So the people that went in and bought Airbnbs and paid extra money for an Airbnb so that they could make great money off of an Airbnb are now suffering a price. I mean, there's some foreclosures coming in on Airbnb properties. There's a lot of people that's got Airbnb properties that are up for sale right now because they can't rent them. So understand your environment, understand your area, invest accordingly. Just because your friend lives on the other side of town and invests over there and does a certain thing, that doesn't mean you can do the same thing on your side of town. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Maybe you can do better than what they're doing over there, but maybe you can't. Just do the homework on it. It's so easy to do the homework. Look it up. If you don't know what to do, send us an email or something and we can get something out there. I'll put something together and we'll do another thing with some city data, websites, and places people can go to get that information. So I'll make that happen.
We got a question that says, I'm an LTR investor primarily, but I am attempting to shift to building new. Is the timing right?
Yes. So is the timing right to do new construction? Again, you got to understand your area, but I don't see the prices of new construction going down. So personally, I can go out. Now, I would love to know if you can respond. Are you building to sell or are you building to hold? That's a good question that I would like to be able to answer, and we'll answer it either way. But I can build a house, buy the land, build the house, and sell the house if I want to sell the house for twice what I got in the house for the most part. Now, I got other people across the country that tells me they just cannot build for that money. I had a conference call with a guy the other day that said they're struggling, but he's still able to make great money in a sale. I don't sell my houses because I don't want to pay a realtor. I don't want to pay capital gains. I don't want to pay the fees that come with it. And typically when I run my numbers on whether I'm going to hold a house or sell a house, holding a house will typically, with everything that I would have got out of the house, I'm usually at a break-even point by the end of year number 2, and now I still own the house. I think it's a great time to build. I am a builder. I'm building now. I don't build elaborate houses. Now, that's the thing. If you're building a house to sell, then if you're building a house to rent, if you're building a house to sell, if you're buying a house to rent, think about this at all times. I built a footprint of a house that's 1,170 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. That's my best rental. It's my best rental because it's not at the top, it's at the middle. So I'm somewhere in the middle, and if I needed to come down a little bit lower than that right there, I could come down from the middle. But the houses, I'm building them for, $125,000 is what I'm building them for. And when I finish building them, they're renting right now. We just rented one for $2,150. So I got $150,000 invested in a house that I'm getting $2,150. We talked about the 1% rule earlier as your break-even point. I'm busting that out the water. And I would encourage you, if you're wanting to build a house, he's a builder, right? Or she?
LTR investment.
Okay. So I like to come in and encourage people to try building a house for experience. Now, I'm not going out here telling you, so don't be saying, well, you told me to build this. I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm saying what I like to do is I talk to different people that have a desire to build a house. I tell them, go out, if you've never built a house before, find a decent piece of land, verify what you can do on it. If you can do a land development deal, then do a land development deal. Maybe you can take that piece of land and put a duplex on it rather than a single family home. Maybe you can take that piece of land and break it up and put 3 houses on it. I like to do that. That gives me the ability to be at a very low price, and I can walk into the deal like that. But what I want to do and what I want other people to experience, and I can tell you there's about a half a dozen right here of people where I live that we have had conversations and I've talked them into building their own properties. And all of them are builders today. And they just go in, they build a very simple house. If you got to hire a contractor, hire a contractor. Find somebody. You don't want to hire the biggest contractor in your neighborhood. They're not going to give you a break. Hire somebody that can do it. Reference from friends and stuff if it's in your area. Do not just go out and hire the cheapest guy. You don't want that. That's going to come back to haunt you. Do not hire somebody who's not licensed. Do not hire somebody who's not insured. Do not hire somebody who, I used to use the terminology as a trunk slammer. All their tools fit in the trunk of their car. When they close their car, their office, their business, and everything goes with them. Don't hire that kind of person. I'm not saying those type of people are bad people. I'm not saying that by any means. There's some great people out there that are starting off like that. I'm just telling you, you got to exercise a lot of caution. Never give a contractor money up front. Never. You want me to pay for your materials up front? You tell me where to go pay for the materials. I'll go pay for the materials where I know they delivered on my job site. There's too many people out there, especially as times are getting harder and harder and harder and tighter and tighter and tighter. There's people that are going to go sell you, hey, I just need to pay for your materials. You give them the money. They don't ever pay for the materials and you never see them again. I mean, the whole country of China, the whole country is dealing with that right now because what they were doing is everybody was prepaying for the construction of their houses before it was built. And what the contractors were doing was they were leveraging that money on other deals they were already building, trying to finish up this deal. And if they didn't get another deal, now they got no money to build their houses. So there's a lot of people in China that lost everything that they had because of that. Don't give anybody money in advance. If they can't afford, if I bring somebody in here to do work for me, if you can't afford to work for 2 weeks and not get any money from me, I don't need you as a contractor. I'd rather spend more money, bring somebody in that I know is financially able to frame a whole house before I got to give them money. You know, they can go in and frame a house in 4 days, 5 days. It doesn't take a tremendous amount of time to frame a house. You know, if you got a big house, maybe it takes a month. Yeah, you're going to give them draws on part of that right there. But watch your money. There's a lot of scam people out there, and they're going to take your money if they can take your money. So don't just think everybody's trustworthy. Most are not. I think I answered that. Okay. Anything else?
Nope, not right now.
Okay, so we're going to go to the next slide here. I hope you tuned in before this. If not, you lost, but we'll get you right back on track. It's no big deal. I'm going to talk a little bit about my story. So we talked about in the beginning what I do. So I grew up poor. So we grew up in, I grew up in a rough family. You know, my dad was a Vietnam vet. He brought some of that stuff home with him. And, an ass whipping was a daily task that you just got. And you live in that environment. And, my dad was always a guy that would give away more than he ever kept. So he would always go help people do stuff, and he would give money to them while we lived with nothing. And I left home when I was about 17 years old. I graduated high school not being able to read. I could read a basic little Dick and Jane book, C-Spot Run. I could read stuff like that, but I couldn't read. I remember when I was 20 years old that my girlfriend had moved to Missouri. And I remember I went to go visit her, and she wanted me to go to church. So I went to church with her. And while I was at her church, we went to Sunday school, and the teacher had me introduce myself. And when I introduced myself, he asked me to read one verse out of the Bible. And probably one of the most humiliating times of my life was trying to get through that one verse with him correcting every single word that I was trying to pronounce. I mean, it was the first time I ever really experienced that. Through high school, nobody ever asked me to read. They didn't. I don't want to say they didn't care, but I don't know. I don't know how that happens, but it happens. And I know other people that have been in the same exact spot. It's just life. Now you can take that crap and you can use that as your excuse to fail your whole entire life. You can say, well, my teachers didn't do this right here, so that's their fault I failed. My parents didn't do this, so it was their fault that I failed. They didn't do this. You can blame everybody else, or you can accept where you are in your life, and you can say, you know what? From today, for the rest of my life, if I fail, it's my fault. I'm going to do what it takes not to fail. So I could have easily went down that path of using that as my excuse or my reason why I'm not successful. I wasn't successful. But I chose not to. So I went to work right out of high school, and I went to work for a hotel. And I did very well in the hotel. I started off in the general storeroom, then I went from general storeroom and I did accounts receivables, I did accounts payable, I did inventory control, I moved to chief accounting clerk, I moved to an assistant 2 position, third in line in an office of 70 people, moving up. And, you know, my ability to read did not affect any of that right there. But what affected that right there was I could do numbers. I love numbers. And as we talk, you hear me talk about numbers all the time. I mean, numbers is what drives me more than anything else. I make my decisions off of numbers. So I did well in accounting because I was good with numbers. But anyway, we had an issue one time and I just quit my job. Not realizing that that's the job of a lifetime, not realizing that's an opportunity, you know. So I left. I decided I would join a union, local 903 out of Gulfport, Mississippi. And I was going to be an electrician. My dad was an electrician. I would just be an electrician. And this was in 1990, April, maybe March. So I joined the union, but I could not start the apprenticeship program till September. So I needed to find a job between there. So I took a job. I took a job part-time in Tennessee. So I came to Tennessee. I was going to work here till September, August, and I was going to go back to Mississippi, Louisiana, and I was going to work there or go to apprenticeship school. So when I moved to Tennessee, I just realized I never wanted to go back to New Orleans. I never wanted to move back. I wanted to stay up here. It's a different environment up here. It's just different. And so I was working for a construction company, and I did that for a year or so, and it wasn't a good fit for me. So I left that job and I went to work for another company that was doing facilities management. It was a startup company for facilities management for restaurants. And I took that position and I was managing their office. 6 months later, the owner dies. When the owner passed away, me and my wife was living in a trailer up in Westmoreland, Tennessee. We lived there for 2 years with no running water. So we never had enough money to dig a well, and there was no city water there. So we were hauling water in from my office. And you know, we didn't have any indoor plumbing at all. You know, I was taking a shower at the place I worked. And half of the windows in this trailer had plywood over them. They were broken. And they had plastic over the plywood to keep the wind from coming in the wintertime. The floors were so rotted out that the dog would stick his head up through the floor and look at you while I was watching TV. I mean, that's where I was. So when Mr. Bill died, his wife came in and she was doing the best she could do, but nobody understood what his desire was. Nobody understood his dream. We talked earlier in the video that people don't understand what your dreams are, what you want to do, why you want to do it, what's your motivation. Nobody understood that. I didn't understand it with him. You know, all I was there trying to just make a living. And so over the next 2 months, I didn't get a paycheck. Well, we were already behind on our car note, struggling. And they repossessed my wife's car. So I come home from work one day and she meets me on the porch and she says, you know what? She said, this isn't working. You know, we can't eat. You know, we got no money for nothing. They done took the car. We got nothing, and this is not working. So I went in the next day, and I told them, I said, I'm going to quit on Friday. So on Friday when I went to work, they pretty much shut the whole company down. Not pretty much shut it down. They shut the whole company down. And I went home, didn't know what I was going to do, had no idea. And that night I got a call from a guy with Hardee's Restaurant. And he called me up and he said, hey, Winston, he said, now this is a guy I never met face to face. I'd only ever talked to him over the telephone. He said, I hear you left office. I said, yeah. He said, what you going to do? I said, I don't know. He said, why don't you start a maintenance company? I said, you want me to do the books? He said, no, I want you to start the company. I said, but I don't do maintenance. I do accounting. And his next comment was, can you just show up? Now, today in 2023, I understand that 100% because I look at workers nowadays and I'm like, can you just show up? Can you just be a man at the door? You know, but at the time I didn't understand that. But I said, yeah, I can show up. So the next day, that Saturday morning, the day after I got off, he called me up and asked me to go fix a bun toaster at a Hardee's restaurant. So I drove to Fairview, Tennessee at this Hardee's restaurant. I don't know what the bun toaster looks like. I know what a toaster on my counter looks like, but I don't know what a commercial bun toaster looks like. So they show it to me. I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay, I don't even know how to turn it on. So I asked the cook, I said, show me what you're doing so I can see if there's anything wrong with that. And I go over here and I turn it on and I push this down over here and he's telling me what he does. I'm like, okay, now I understand how it works. So now I just got some tools out. I took it apart and I fixed the bun toaster. For the next 5 years of my life, I did the same routine. I didn't know how it worked. I didn't know how to turn it on. I would ask the cook to show me, ask the back of the house person to show me. They would show me what they were doing, and then I would take it from there and I would fix it. I never got on anything I couldn't fix. So I started a restaurant service company that day where I did everything in a restaurant, no matter what it is, from curb to curb. If it was a hole in the parking lot, I fixed that hole in that parking lot. I never gave a competitor a reason to step in a place that I worked. And I was extremely good at it. I was successful. I would work days and I would never go home. I would never go to sleep. And it was my life. And my whole thought whenever I started it was, if I can do $100 a day, if I can just make $100 a day, I'm making better money than I was making. That's how pathetic it really was back then. If I could just do $100 a day. I did $382,000 in business between March of 1992 and December of 1992. That's how many hours I worked. I mean, it never stopped. And for the next 9 years, I worked that schedule. I may go to work on a Monday. My wife might not see me till Wednesday. Every now and then, she might not see me till Thursday. I wouldn't go to sleep. I could consistently work 3 days in a row and never sleep. And then go home, get some sleep, and then work 48 hours and not go back home. And, so obviously that marriage did not work out because I wasn't home to take care of business like I needed to take care of business. My attitude was, I just didn't want to be broke no more. I didn't want to wonder whether I was going to have food anymore. I didn't want to worry about being able to buy gas. I didn't want to worry about any of that stuff. So that's a price that I paid. And that's a price I paid. And right now I would tell you I had no regrets on that. You may say, well, that's pretty shitty. And it might be in your eyes. But what drives you doesn't drive me, probably. My driving force is more security because I never had security growing up. So that is what pushes me. All of us have something else that pushes us. And I don't think that any of us have a wrong answer or a right answer. I think it's the right answer for each one of us. And I started buying real estate. That was, I started that in 92. 2006, I started buying some real estate. First thing I ever bought was a trailer park. Then I went and bought some 3 double wides. Then I went and bought some single family houses. Then I bought some more trailer parks. And I was growing the portfolio good until I bought 3 trailer parks over in Russellville, Kentucky. And when I bought those trailer parks, I did not really know how to run numbers. I didn't really know how to properly run numbers. I didn't know how to properly look at the expenses. I didn't know how to do my due diligence, and I didn't do good due diligence on those trailer parks. So it turned out that I started losing money right out the bat, and I was losing $8,000 a month between the 3 trailer parks. And I would go in and I would rehab a trailer and I would move somebody into that trailer. 3 weeks later, they would move out and there'd be $5,000, $8,000 worth of damage to the trailer. And that was consistently that I would do that, consistently. And come to find out, Russellville, Kentucky, I think at that particular point in time might have been the meth capital of the world because everybody we brought in was drug addicts. I didn't understand how to vet people. I didn't understand what it took to get a good tenant. I didn't understand that. I just put somebody in it and it's always worked out in the past. Well, this was a different story. So I'm home one Saturday and I get a call and I take the call on something at the trailer park. And I just went inside and I told my wife, I said, look, I'm going to auction all those trailer parks off. They're going to be gone by the end of this month. I hired a auctioneer on Monday. At the end of that month, every one of them trailer parks were gone. All of them paid me back the money I paid for the trailer park, but I never got any of the money back I invested, the $8,000 a month I lost for 3 years. So after that, after I lost that money, I'm regrouping, figuring out what am I going to do? How am I going to make this all work? And I had a guy come into my office selling Aflac insurance. He met with my employees. Then after he met with my employees, he sat down with me and we were talking, and he asked me, he said, are you part of Rich Dad Education? I said, what? He said, Rich Dad Education. I said, I don't know what that is. He said, now, we'll step back a few years. 1997, I learned to read. Since 1997, 1998, I am an avid reader. I put a tremendous amount of stock in reading books. I put a tremendous amount of stock in hearing how other people built successful businesses, motivational stuff, educational stuff for me. I am an avid reader now. So this is all the way back to, we're in 2013 when I'm talking right now, December of 2013. So he said, are you part of Rich Dad? I said, I don't know what that is. He said, Rich Dad Education. He said, Robert Kiyosaki? I said, I don't know who Robert Kiyosaki is. He said, you've never read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad? I said, no. So he tells me he's going to go that night and he's going to buy that book for me. He'll bring it back to me the next day. I said, well, I don't need you to buy a book for me. I'll go buy a book myself. I got this pride issue where I don't do well with people buying me stuff. So he kind of forced me to go to the bookstore that night, buy the book, and go home. So I bought the book, and I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If you have never read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I encourage you, with everything that I am, read that book. Read his book, Cash Flow Quadrant. Understand the mindset of a real estate investor. So I read the book, and I was just fascinated. So I went and bought another one of his books. And between the first part of December and January 3rd of 2014, I had read 6 of Robert Kiyosaki's books. And I got on the internet. I went back to work after Christmas or after New Year's, and I'm looking for something else that I can buy with Robert Kiyosaki, something he wrote. And I came across something where he was doing a Rich Dad Education seminar in Tampa, Florida. I got online, I booked myself a plane ticket, and 2 days later, I'm off to Tampa, Florida. I flew to Tampa. I get into this quote-unquote convention, and the first thing I realized about 30 minutes into it is, oh my word, this is going to be one hard sales presentation. And it's a 3-day class, so I'm there for 3 days. So the education I was getting on that was I needed to buy their program. I needed to buy their classes to be successful. I needed to educate myself. And as I listened to the speakers talk, they were good. But everything they were saying, where they were saying you needed to invest in this and you needed to buy this, as I looked at it, I needed to invest in it. I needed to buy it. So even before the end of the first day, I went and told them, I said, I want to buy the course. They said, we haven't got to that part yet. I said, I don't need to get to that part. I want to buy it. I said, this is what I want. They wouldn't discuss anything with me. They told me the next day we would talk about it. So the next day, I find out that the course I want to take is 8 courses, $35,000. And I looked at it and I said, $35,000 for 8 classes? And I could take the classes 3 times. So I said, I can pay $35,000 for it, and then maybe I don't make one mistake that I would have made before and more than make up that $35,000. So I bought the classes. I fly back home, tell my wife about it. She's like, okay. That was it. That was really, whatever you want to do it. So then I get online and I start looking at the classes and stuff. And then I find out that there are no classes in the state of Tennessee. None, 0. So I call and I speak to somebody. They say, yeah, we got a class coming up in Texas next month in February. I said, okay. So I booked the class. I booked a room in Texas. I flew to Texas, went to the class there. I came home. I used the technique that was taught in the class, and I bought a house. The next month, I went to a class in Seattle. I flew home. I used the technique that was taught in the class, and I bought a house. The next month, I went to Arizona. Then I went back home and I bought a house. And then Florida, and they're everywhere but here. So I'm flying, I'm spending probably $4,000 a weekend, $3,000 a weekend going out to these classes to do them. But every single time I come home, I'm buying a house. And I did that for 2 years. Every single month I bought a house for 2 years. So in 2016, I was inducted into the Rich Dad Hall of Fame, or at that particular point in time, Elite Legacy had purchased it. So it was an Elite Legacy thing at that point. It changed from Rich Dad to Elite Legacy. And I am not recommending anybody purchase any Elite Legacy packages. There's still some out there. They turned and made it something that Rich Dad Education was not. So I do not recommend their course at all. But I grew my assets about $9 million during that period of time, which was incredible. And since then, we continually invest in ourselves in real estate classes. So I am an avid person to tell anybody out there, education is king when it comes to doing this. Understanding. One of the best classes I ever had, a guy named Rick Mariansky. I took his class a half a dozen times because after I got inducted into the Hall of Fame with them, we were able to go to their events for free. So we continued to go to their events for years. But his class was only on running numbers. It was a 3-day class on running numbers. And I'm telling you, I took it at least a half a dozen times. And I had to, because as simple as it was, it took that much for it to register in my mind. My wife didn't join Elite Legacy. I only bought a one-person package. 2 years later, I bought another package for her because I saw the necessity of her being on the exact same page I'm on. So then I attended all the classes with her together. But that's my story with that. Today we got a little bit over 50 million in assets that we own. We bring in by the end of this year, we'll be bringing in about $300,000 a month in passive income. As I said earlier, I'm about 23% leveraged on my portfolio, so we're not real heavily leveraged. I am an investor. I invest every dollar I make back into my company. My wife will tell you I keep us broke. Every dollar we bring in, I go buy something. And I go buy something. And that's just where I am. That's where I want to be in my life right now. So here we are, 2023. I sold my company, my maintenance company, in 2019. We've been full-time, nothing but real estate, her and I, pretty much since about 2017. We've been nothing but real estate, her and I. And my company just ran itself. But I was kind of wandering around. I needed to do more stuff. I wanted to help people. So that's the purpose of doing TikTok. That's the purpose of doing Instagram. That's the purpose of trying to do Facebook posts, to find people out there that maybe don't have a lot of money, but they want to do it and they don't know how to do it. Maybe find somebody out there that's got some money and they still don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to do it. And these mistakes are expensive. When you make a mistake and you buy the wrong property, you might lose everything you have. So having somebody to reach out and grab, to have those people help you, mentor you, and teach you. I would encourage people to do that. If you got a local person that you know that does real estate, ask them to mentor you. Ask them if they'll help you make some good decisions. See what you can get, because you don't want to make the mistakes. You don't want to make a mistake that you're going to lose $100,000 on. I'll tell you about a deal. I went to an auction one time where they were auctioning off a house. All it said was auction off a house. And I called the auctioneer. They were starting the bids real low, and it was at about $114,000, and the house was probably worth $250,000. And I called the auctioneer up and I asked him if there was anything I needed to know about the property. He said no. So then I went to one of my real estate classes, and I was talking to a guy with the real estate class, and he said, you need to verify they're not auctioning off that second mortgage. He said, because if they're behind on a second mortgage, then somebody can buy that second mortgage, but you don't own the house. You still got to pay off the first mortgage. So I came back home and I called the guy back up. I said, are you auctioning off the first mortgage or the second mortgage? He said, I don't have any idea about that. So he would not disclose that information to me. So then as I looked around, I couldn't find the answers I was looking for. So I called one of my bankers and I said, can you investigate this and tell me whether they're selling the first mortgage or second mortgage? And he called me back. He said, they're selling the second mortgage. So had I bought that house, went to that auction, gave $160,000 for a $250,000 house, I would have paid that bank $160,000 for a second mortgage that they had on a home that was only like $115,000. They would have made $40,000, $50,000 off of me by buying it. And I would have had a house that I couldn't do anything with because I didn't own the first mortgage. I would have had a full close on the first mortgage to be able to, and then I would have had to pay that bank off on that in order to be able to go in. Well, not full close on the first mortgage, but full close on the house or go buy the first mortgage from the bank. So education is king. Don't trust everybody, okay? If you got any questions, please put it in the comments. Nick will let me know what we got. Like and subscribe. Look at our other channels, and we're going to move on from this. You got something?
I got something. A lot of you guys are asking for some material on developing, and we're actually coming out with a book pretty soon here, The Real Estate Template, The Ultimate Guide to Developing.
I'm falling behind on that. I should have done some proofreading I haven't done.
But that's coming out soon. We'll make it accessible. There'll be links. It's going to be an ebook to start off with, and then possibly a hardcover as well. So get ready for that.
And drop us lines with your questions.
Yes.
If we can help you, we're going to help you. Now, we are limited on time because I do work too. So I have a few hours here and there that I can spend doing some stuff, but we get a lot of comments. And Nick answers a lot of comments for me. I appreciate him for that right there. He takes care of business for me on that end. But we are doing the best we can do with that right there. Just let us know what you got. So here's the next question. So we talked about what might drive you. We talked about what might you desire and what might you want. So the questions we ended with before we went to my story there was, what does it take to be successful? In your opinion. What does it take to build greatness? In your opinion. And what does it take to build a legacy that carries you and your family for centuries? To you. It doesn't matter what I think. What do you think? Because you can't build somebody else's dream. You got to build your own dream. So I wanted to talk here about how did each of these people do it. Everybody thinks I can't do anything without money. I just can't do it without money. These are all first generation billionaires, millionaires. So we got Elon Musk there. Elon Musk has 153 billion, and he's made all that money in the tech industry. So I had somebody make a comment because I made that statement on one of the other videos, and somebody said, well, he came from a rich family. I went and looked and tried to read some stuff. I'm not seeing where he came from. I know his dad was an engineer. I don't know that he came from a rich family. Maybe he came from a better family than what most people did over there. I don't know. He came from South Africa, right?
South Africa, yes.
Yeah, so he came from South Africa. But when he came to the States, my son told me years ago, we were living in a really, really nice house, and he come home from school and he was in 8th grade. And he said, and I always told my kids we're poor, you can't have this right here. They would want something. I remember my son wanted, what was that, a DS or something, a little game thing. That's how old this thing is. And it had a Nerf cover on it. He said, Daddy, I want one of them Nerf covers. I said, I ain't buying that. He said, why? I said, son, we ain't rich. He said, but Caleb's got one. I said, but Caleb's daddy's a pastor. He's rich. We're not. Now, at this particular point in time, we're living in a 12,000 square foot house. So, but young kids don't recognize that. They don't see that. That's just where they live. So several years passed. I think he was in 8th grade. He came home riding the bus, and I get home from work, and he said, Dad, I need to talk to you. I said, okay. He said, my friends told me that we're rich. I said, they did? He said, yeah. I said, well, what do they know about whether you are rich or not? He said, well, they were talking to me and they told me to look at our house and look at everybody else's house. He said, and they said that there's no way we can live in that house and not have money. I said, well, there's something called debt. And don't judge a person by their house because you don't know how much they owe on that house. You don't know anything about that. And then he said something else that his friend said. And my comment to him was, I said, well, son, let me explain one thing to you. My money ain't your money. If I'm rich, that does not make you rich. How much money you got in your bank? I don't have no money. I said, then you ain't rich. So whenever your friends tell you rich, you tell them you ain't rich. And that's kind of my attitude with the Elon Musk thing. Well, Elon Musk's dad was rich. His dad might have been rich. I don't know. But does that make Elon Musk rich? I don't know. Let's say Donald Trump ain't on my list because a lot of people hate him, and I didn't want to cause any adverse effect with the video. But there's rumors out there that Donald Trump's dad gave him $1 million when he graduated college. There's also a rumor out there that his daddy gave him $5 million. I don't know which one is true. I'm sure probably one of those are true. I think Donald Trump said that his dad let him borrow some money and he paid his dad back. But I know people who are trustafarians, okay? So a trustafarian is a person that their parents die, they leave them a bunch of money, they go buy them a nice house, they live an elaborate life, but they never accomplish anything in their whole life. They never do anything. They live off of their parents' money their whole entire life, and that's something that my kids will not do. So Donald Trump could have wound up being a trustafarian and just living off of his dad's money. And people can say that his daddy gave him that money, and maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But regardless, nobody can deny the fact that he took whatever his daddy did give him and he built that and turned that into billions of dollars. That's not somebody that was given everything. That's somebody that maybe was given an opportunity with $1 million. So I would say my $1 million in net worth probably happened somewhere in the early 2000s. Okay, so I would have been in my 30s, my early 30s at that point. So at that point, I would have put myself where Donald Trump was if his daddy gave him that right there. I had a business that was doing good. Right now, I'm worth $50 million. He's worth billions. I think he did a lot better than I've done. You know, so how do you take that away from him and say, well, you know, if Elon Musk's daddy gave him a little bit of money, and in those years, it wouldn't have been that much money. If his dad gave him $1 million and he turned that $1 million into $153 billion. And some person out there wants to say, well, his daddy gave it to him. His daddy didn't give him that. I'm sorry. You can go out and borrow money at the bank and the bank can give you money and you can be successful with that right there. Did the bank make you successful? Or did you working your behind off make you successful? You create your destiny, not somebody else. George Soros. I don't like anything about the man, and I mean nothing about the man. But the man grew up with nothing. The man's now worth $8 billion, made his money in the banking industry. Hey, you know what? This guy's an immigrant. This guy's an immigrant. First generation immigrants. Ain't that kind of cool? I know so many people that came to this country with nothing and have grown to be billionaires. Way, 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 way more than what I've done in my life. And they had less than what I had as an opportunity. But they did it. Look at Patrick Bet-David. Look at him. Hundreds of millions of dollars, man. Immigrant from Iran. How does that happen? Work your ass off mentality. That's how it happens. You go out there and you work and you ain't quitting for nothing. I don't work and I don't live my life for Saturday. I could care less about Saturday. Saturday, Sunday, it is no different than Monday or Tuesday to me. I work 7 days a week. If there's work out there to be done, I just don't quit. And these guys didn't either, or they wouldn't be where they are. Howard Schultz, $2.9 billion, started at Starbucks. Oprah Winfrey, $2.9 billion, made a TV personality. She lucky? No, that woman works her behind off. She works. He works. He works. They work, and they don't quit, and they don't give up, and they don't back up. They don't stop. They press forward, press forward, press forward. I need you to come home for supper tonight. Screw supper. I'm going to go work because that's what feeds our family. And we do that, and it's just what we do. It is part of being an entrepreneur. How much are you willing to sacrifice to get you where you want to go? Nancy Pelosi, $171 million. We're not even going to talk about that right there because I wouldn't have a nice thing to say about it. But I guarantee you, she didn't earn that money. I just put that on there because I couldn't help myself. So they got Robert Kiyosaki. I Googled Robert Kiyosaki. He said he was worth $100 million. I know Robert Kiyosaki personally. I assure you, he's worth a whole lot more than $100 million. That's just what the internet got. I don't have any idea what he's worth, but I know that man is 77 years old right now. And if you watch his podcast or anything, you'll find out that he still, at 77, with no children, spends all his money on investing into something else. He's never taken his money and went anywhere else with it. He just invests it. And he still does that right there. So it's a lifestyle. What we do as a real estate investor becomes a lifestyle. It just becomes our identity. It's who we are. It's what we are. It's what we do. So what did they do to be successful? In my opinion, the first thing we got to do is create a vision. Okay, I got a little definition there. The art of seeing what is invisible to other people. I do really good in my life driving down the road and looking at property and being able to see something in a piece of property that everybody else does not see in that property. And then I go and I do planning and zoning, I hire an engineer, and I create something out of that property that did not exist. And I love doing that stuff. If you saw the beginning of the video, I was talking to when we started this. I like doing land development. I love it. I love creating it. I love making it something different. I like it. There's good money in it. I'll tell you there's good money in it, but I don't sell any of my land development deals, so go figure. I got here 2020. So everybody wants 2020 vision, right? If I can just have my vision 2020, that'd be great. Did you know that 2020 vision is actually average vision? If you have 2020 vision, it says if you are sitting 20 feet or standing 20 feet from the eye chart and you read whatever line they say you can read, 2020 vision is what the average person can read. It's the average line that the average person, 51% of 100 people can read this one particular line. That is by no means perfect vision. There are people that have 20/10 vision. They can see at 20 feet what the average person can only see at 10 feet. So I'm just giving that as a little bit of news that 2020 isn't perfect, but I put up there because people understand it. But I don't want to be average. I want to see something everybody else doesn't see. So you create your vision, what you want your business to look like. What do you want your life to look like? What do you want 20 years from now to look like? Your vision of what your perfect world looks like. Your perfect world and my perfect world are not the same worlds. They're different. So everybody has their own perfect world. And you can create that world if that's what you want. But it does start with a vision. My vision when I first started the company, as I said in my story, my vision was $100 a day. If I can build $100 a day, I can live. It wasn't much of a vision, but it was a vision. The next thing they had to do is they had to create a mindset. So for mindset is your thoughts create your reality. If you think about bad stuff all the time, you will have a tendency to do bad stuff. You'll have a tendency to gravitate to that type of environment. You hang around bad people, you have way more of a tendency to become a bad person. You hang around great people, you have an ability to become a great person. They say that people are the average of the 5 people, the top 5 people to hang with. So if you hang with 5 different people, chances are you're somewhere in the average of those 5 people. You may not be in the middle, you may not be at the top, somewhere in the middle, or you may not be at the bottom, somewhere in the middle. But that's usually what we do. We hang around with people that we do. So I try to put myself around people that do better than me. I try to put myself around people that know more than I know. I try to put myself around people that can help me do better than what I do. And that's very important to me. So I have the golden ratio right there, 1.618 in mathematics, the rule of proportion. So that's an interesting thing if you Google 1.618. If you Google that right there, it talks about that from here to here is one measurement, but from here to here is 1.618 of the whole. And it goes through, if your nose, from the outside of your nose to nose, if you go from the inside to this side over here, it's 1.618. The perfect body proportions across your entire body uses this ratio. If you look at a tree grows, the leaves go out, but the limbs go out in the leaves, but the roots of that tree grow out 1.618 times further than the limbs do. If you look at a flower, the pedestal, you got your center, and then a layer of the pedestals go out, it's 1.618 bigger. Then the next layer, 1.618 bigger, and the next layer, 1.618 bigger. If you do sunflower seeds, the way the sunflower grows, same thing. But it's the mathematics and the rule works across our universe of how planets work together. It's a really cool thing to just Google and look at. It talks about the pyramids. When they built the pyramids, that the first layer of block was whatever. Then the next layer came in was 1.618 smaller, then 1.618 smaller, then 1.618 smaller. And it gave them the perfect building structure that would give them the strength that would last for centuries. That is the mindset. You want your mindset to be so clear, your thoughts to be so clear on this is what I'm going to do. This is what's going to make the perfect business. This is what's going to help me make the perfect decisions on whether to buy a property or whether not to buy a property. I'm going to buy that property because I've done all my numbers backwards and forwards, and I know exactly what this property is going to do. There is no guesswork in real estate, I don't believe. I think we can look at the variables and we can look at all of the risk. And when you look at all of the risk, and we had somebody ask earlier about whether now's the time to buy, now's the time to rent. If you look at your ratio and you look at if you're going to buy a house and you're going to rent that house, this is the best case scenario. And this is the worst case scenario. And you look at the best case scenario, you look at the worst case scenario, and you say, you know what? I can live with either scenario. Buy the house. But if you look in the worst case scenario, say, I really can't live with the worst case scenario. It'll bankrupt me. But if it's a little bit better than the worst case scenario, I can live with that. I would say don't buy the house. Because if you can't live with the worst case scenario, then you have risk. And then as you start having those risks and you start having those struggles, then you got to look at failing. Then you fail with that house, then your marriage fails with relationship with kids. It escalates downward. So don't put yourself in a position to put undue stress on your family, ever. Don't do that. If you're married, put your spouse in a room. Y'all talk about what you're doing. Get on the same page. Try your best to be on that same page because you need each other's support as you do this. Best case, worst case. Finally, they created their hustle. So what does that mean? So a dream doesn't become a reality through magic. It takes sweat, determination, and hard work. You must put in the time, you must put in the hard work, and you must be determined. Purposeful. So everything in our lives should be purposeful. If I'm going to buy this rick of wood, I'm just going to go buy a rick, not a rick, but a stack of wood. I'm going to buy 250 2x4s. What good does that do for me to go buy 250 2x4s if I don't have a purpose for those 250 2x4s? Maybe I look at that and say, hey, lumber prices are going to go up 30% next month. And we can know that. We can know that just by looking at the commodities market. That, hey, in the futures market, it's already showing that next month wood's going to be more expensive. Okay, invest accordingly. Maybe I got a project coming in. I want to go buy 250 2x4s prior right there because I have a purpose of using those 250 2x4s next month, but I don't want to pay 30% more for them. I buy this house for a specific purpose. I don't buy it and say, I wonder what I'm going to do with it. You buy it with a very specific purpose in mind of what you want to do with it. And when we do that, 24/7, 365, it never stops. We all need to be willing. If you got to work 24 hours in a day, you work your 24 hours in a day. Make it happen. If you got to go a day without sleep, it ain't going to kill you. If you got to work 7 days a week, work 7 days a week. Work what it takes you to work to achieve the goals that you have. That's your hustle. If you got to work 365 days in a year and not ever take a day off because that's what's going to drive you to your goal. Would you work 365 days straight, 2 years in a row, if it said, hey, by year number 5, you never have to work another weekend? Maybe on year number 3, you got to work a few. Maybe the week number 4, you got to work some. But on week number 5 or year number 5, you never have to work another weekend in your life. Would you give up 2 years of no weekends to get the rest of your life for free? Now, you can always achieve that as an employee. I'm talking about from an entrepreneurial standpoint. What are you willing to do for it? What is it going to take? Now, that is a mindset also. You can evaluate that before you ever step into it. What's it going to take me to get to that? We'll help you with that too. With no loss of enthusiasm. So you hear so many people will talk about they failed at something. How many people fail at one thing and they let that determine their whole entire life? They never succeed because they failed one time 10 years ago and they never recovered from it. Maybe you've been in a marriage and you got divorced and you've never been able to take that next step forward from that divorce because you took it as such a failure in your life that you can't achieve anything more. Nothing can hold you down but you. And you can't let something in your life that happens stop you from being successful. So we fail and we move forward with the exact same enthusiasm we had before we failed. So you went through a divorce, you get the same exact enthusiasm you had on your wedding day and you march forward and you succeed. And you don't make up the excuses, well, my husband don't give me alimony, I can't do it. Okay. That's a bitch. And that makes your life hard as hell. I ain't discounting it. But you know what? Get out there and do it. You can use it as an excuse or you can use it as another device to drive you harder and drive you further to success. I am not going to get in a category where another man can hurt me. And it can be the opposite with a woman. Doesn't matter. Man or woman, doesn't matter. You don't have to. You take that and you march with enthusiasm that you're going to do it. Nobody controls your destiny but you. You can keep telling yourself somebody else controls it. They don't. They don't. 80-20 rule. So the 80-20 rule says that 80% of what you achieve in life takes 20% of your time. So when you're an entrepreneur, 80% of my success comes from 20% of my work. 80% of my results comes from 20% of my action. 80% of your results will come from 20% of your action. Okay. There's a whole other step that I never hear anybody talk about that I would love for people to say. This brings us to, the statement I just read. What would separate you from others if the fact that if you can press through the 80%, okay, and say, you know what? I'm going to work harder. If 80% of my success comes from 20% of my work, then I'm going to work harder on that 20% and I'm going to try and put forth 50% efficiency, 80% efficiency. That's going to separate the cream from the crop right there, right? So you put in more time, you put in more effort so that you are not getting, you might still get 80% of your results from 20% of your work, but what would take you from 80 let's say you put in 30% more effort, and it brings you from 80% on the results to 90% of the results. How much is that little 10% worth? I'm going to tell you, in the scheme of life, in the scheme of things, that little bit of additional stuff is what creates wealth. That little bit of additional stuff is what separates you and me and other people that do that from the rest of this world. And once you're separated, you're separated. Once you get that mindset, you got that mindset. Nothing can break that. Nothing can take you down. Once you hear about so many different people that fail, bankrupt, and then come back and they do it twice as good as they did it before. That was because they were determined. That's because that failure didn't stop them. That failure didn't label them. That failure didn't say, hey, you are a loser the rest of your life. No, I was a freaking loser for one time. I did one thing wrong. I did 10 things wrong. That doesn't define you. Somebody goes to prison. The world wants to judge somebody like that and say, that guy can never do nothing. You know, I read a thing the other day. Prisoners shouldn't be able to vote. Why? You go to jail, you pay your time. Why shouldn't you have the same rights of every other American citizen and live your life? And you know what? You paid your debt. Get off your behind, go out there and take this world. I know people that have done it. I'm good friends with people that have done it, that they could have quit and gave up everything and said, you know what? I'm an ex-felon. I just soon be a drug addict. I just soon go do something like that right there because I can't be successful. That does not define you. That's one point in time, one moment in your life, regardless of what it was. I don't care what it was. That's one moment in your life that you failed. That does not define your whole entire life. So what do we do when we can put that other 10% on top of that 80%? It doesn't take a lot of time actually to do it. It just takes you managing your time a little bit different. Greatness. So greatness is not a destination. Greatness is a continuous journey that never ends. So we don't define, I want to achieve this one position, that's it, I'm great. That's not what we're talking about. You know, we talk about Elon Musk here. Elon Musk, if we take him into consideration, he has achieved great things in his life. He never has to work. He never has to worry about anything. You know, the man can't hold a family down because he can't quit working. That might be a sickness. I think a lot of us have that sickness that are entrepreneurs because we're driven by something that other people don't understand. But he did an interview where he said that his whole goal is just to create a better world. He wants to create something that nobody's created. He just wants, and he's not doing it for himself. I mean, if he was living for Elon Musk, he'd be on his yacht somewhere. He would just be living high on the hog with life. I mean, the man's 54 years old, 50 years old. I mean, I think he's about 54. So, you know, he's got, 20 years left in life, 30 years left in life. He could take that and coast through it, but he chooses not to because his purpose is not money. His purpose is not fame. His purpose is not the stuff that everybody thinks his purpose is. His purpose is he wants to make our world a better place. I just want to make my life a little bit better. I want to help out my local area here where I live. I want to do stuff like that. I've never had a dream of changing the world, but that's that man's dream, and I think it might be successful in the end. What a cool place to be. But when you set those goals of where you want to be 20 years from now, those goals are ever adjusting. They're ever adjusting. And you're going to change them all the time. And that's going to change what level of I wanted to make $100 a day. That was my level of greatness and my mindset at that particular point in time. Then I wanted to make, $1,000 a week. That was my level of mindset, my level of greatness. Then I wanted to make $100,000 a year. And then I wanted to be able to make $1 million a year. And as I continued to change that benchmark of what my level of greatness is, and, I wanted to be able to retire early from my family. Well, I was able to retire early, but I didn't have any desire to retire early. So I went on with life, and I set a different goal, and I wanted to help this many people. So then I did that right there, and then I set another goal. I want to do this right here. And, so you continually change your goals. You continually change your desires to make yourself bigger and better in your own mind of what you want to be as a person. You know, I want to help people in real estate. Therefore, we're doing this right here. I make enough money that allows me to sit in this room and do this, and allows us to go out and do videos, and allows us to talk and make this stuff happen. And that was a level of success I had to get to be able to do that. So your level of greatness is your level. It's your mark, but you should have it. So your legacy. Our goal is not to live forever, but to build something that will. So here's where I am on my level of legacy. Again, I said you may have a desire to give everything you make away. You may want to give it to your church. You may want to give it to different organizations. You may want to feed the homeless with it. You can do anything with it. So for me, I want to create generational wealth. So the reason I don't want to give all that I create away is because I don't trust the people that I would give it to. If I give it all to one organization, let's do Feed the Children. What does Feed the Children do? They keep like 94% of everything donated to them to take care of their expenses, and 4% goes out into the country, goes out into the world to feed the kids. There's so many organizations that are like that. I don't trust it. I'm not giving my money to pay somebody's salary. When I was younger, my dad had called me up, wanted me to go with him to do a prison ministry at Parchman Prison over in South Mississippi. And I told him, I said, I just don't have the extra money. He said, how can you not have the extra money? He said, ain't you working? I said, yes, I work all the time. He said, well, how can you not have any money? I said, well, I give this much a week to my church, and then I help this family out. I give them money every month, and then I help this person out. I give them money every month, and I do this. And he stopped me, and he said, you know what, son? He said, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to give you something that will change your life. He said, me and your mom don't have anything. He said, I've never saved money my whole life. Right now, from what I see, I'm going to work till I die. And I don't have any opportunity because I have given everything that I make away. He said, if you continue on the path you are, then you're going to find yourself an old man like me, and you are not going to be able to take care of the people and the things that you need to take care of that are most important to you. He says, so invest in yourself. And then maybe you don't help as many people right now. You give what you feel like is right to give. But all of the excess that you give, and you invest that into something that makes you money. And then one day you will be able to help thousands of people, and it doesn't affect you at all. So I changed my mindset at that point. I started doing things differently, which gives me the ability to help people all the time. And it never hurts me. I'm able to help people, and I make good money, I help more people. I make good money, help more people. But I invested in myself. So don't give everything away while you're young thinking that you're saving the world. Take that money, help that money make you money so that when you're older, you can really make a dent in helping people. So that's just a sidebar on that right there. So my legacy is, when I die, obviously everything goes to my wife. When me and my wife both die, everything is divided into 5 different trusts, or 6 different trusts. So as it's divided in the 6 different trusts, those trusts go different ways. So 4 of those, or 5 of those trusts go to our 4 kids and one of her nieces. And those trusts are set up where they're 360-year trusts. So they will be able to take the interest off of that money, a portion of the interest off of the money. The money has to make money every year. If it doesn't make money, they don't get any money. They have to have a job. If they don't have a job, they don't get any money from us. Their trust doesn't pay. If they want to be involved in real estate, then they are able to borrow money from the trust to do real estate deals. They have to pay their trust back with interest for the money they borrow, and then they get to keep all the other profits. So it gives them money a little bit off of the top of the trust, but it also gives them ability to borrow from the trust, build projects, do projects, put the money back into the trust. My trust, I don't want my kids on drugs. So my trust drug tests 4 times a year before they get any payments. If you fail your drug test, you don't get a payment. So for that quarter. And that's the way we draw it out. So we do things like that so that we can protect them. And if they don't do it, when they die, it passes to their kids. Now their kids get the same affordability and access to money that they have, and so on and so forth for 360 years. So your legacy is your legacy. And you can draw that legacy up and you can make that legacy look any way that you want. You can leave all your money to your kids and it's over. That's fine. There's no right or wrong answer. Everybody has their own answer. The reason I've set mine up the way I'm setting it up is because I have bought so many estates. I have bought so many houses from people who died and their kids could care less about everything that they spent their whole life creating, and they were willing to sell it 30 cents on a dollar. And I just don't want my kids to have that ability. I'm not, I don't have to work, and I'm not going out here working every day of my life in my 50s so that my kids can give it away, so that my kids don't have to work. I'm not doing it. I'm going to do it so that my kids have a legacy to leave for their kids also. And that's what your legacy is. So what does yours look like? I don't know. You have to define that. So this is our information. If you want to contact us, this is where you can find us on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. Obviously, you know where we're on TikTok, you hear. But so one other thing I wanted to talk about is I want to talk about goals. I set a goal back 33 years ago or so, 34 years ago, about where I wanted to be when I was 40 years old. Then as I achieved that goal, and I set that goal 30 years out or 20 years, would have been 20 years out at that point. Then I set a 10-year goal, and then I set a 5-year goal, and I set a 3-year goal and a 1-year goal. And as I set those goals out, I achieved those goals extremely quickly. And then I would change my 20-year goal, and I would exceed it quickly, and then I would change it again. And when I was 40, I was well, my main goal was to be able to retire at 40. I didn't have a desire to retire, so I kept working. And then I set a 50-year goal. And then by the time I was like 43, I achieved my 50-year goal. And then I set another goal for when I was 60. And, I haven't hit my 60-year goal yet, or my 60-year-old goal yet, but I will hit it. I don't have any issue hitting it. I could hit it next year if I wanted to. And, but I haven't. I haven't hit it because I'm growing my portfolio organically, really. I'm not going out getting a bunch of debt to grow it. I'm trying to do it on my own. But my goal when I'm 60 is $100 million in assets. So I want to have $100 million in assets when I'm 60. And, I could leverage what I own now and go buy a $100 million apartment complex in 2023 and achieve my goal in 2023. But I don't want to do that. I want to grow slow. I want to grow slow, but I promise you, before I hit 60, I will leverage what I got to leverage in my 59th year so that I hit my mark at 60. And if I hit that mark of 100 million at 60, then I very well could see me very easily hitting $1 billion mark at age 70. Now, I'm a coon ass from New Orleans. What in the world? What dream or what idiotic thought would I have that I could come from where I was and own $1 billion worth of assets? But it's as realistic as anything. So if I could do that, what could you do? And I think each and every one of us can set those goals and achieve them and do just some incredible things in the period of our lives. So I encourage every one of y'all, get out there, find out what you really want, and go do it. Get your family on board with it. Get your spouse on board with it. I got a 16-year-old boy working with me right now, working his behind off, doing a great job. It's never too early to start, and it's never too late to start. Appreciate y'all watching the videos. Please like, please subscribe. Check us out on all the other channels. Like I said, this is where you can reach us on any of those. And let us know what you want from us. Let us know what you would like us to do a video on. I did a one-on-one podcast with my attorney yesterday. I said that in the beginning. And we will be bringing people in and doing podcasts every week now. And if you got a particular subject that you want me to do a podcast on, let me know what you want. And they're all going to be basic. I am really centering the thing of investing in real estate and investing in yourselves from a very simplistic way so that it reaches the majority of this world that needs it. The majority of the people in our country don't have anything, and they don't know what to do. They don't like being where they are, but they don't know how to get out of that hole that they're in. They're in a ditch and they don't know how to get out of it. So our goal will be to help you find a path to get out of that ditch, to help you find a path that will help you do better. And my first question is always going to be, are you willing to sacrifice what it takes to do it? And if your answer is yes, nothing can stop you. Nothing can stop you. So thank y'all very much. Have a great day.